Now, in 2011, as the Arab Spring took grip of Libya, where a number of Libyan rebels took up arms against the Gaddafi government to overthrow him and actually install a new government, right? Gaddafi requested the Tuareg people, which you mostly find in the Sahel, right, for assistance. So he asked the Tuareg people to assist him to fight the Libyan rebels who were trying to overthrow him. So Gaddafi provided a lot of arms and weapons to the Tuaregs. He gave them AK-47s, he gave them grenades, he gave them rocket-propelled grenades. Those are known as RPGs. He gave them pickup trucks, which could carry machine guns at the back, right? And he gave them a number of military equipment to assist him to fight the Libyan rebels who were attempting to overthrow him using a popular rising. Okay, as we all know, it really didn't go well for Gaddafi. So he was killed and his government was overthrown, right? So, what happened to the Tuareg people is that with the weapons and arms which they received from the Libyan government, which was under Gaddafi, they took these weapons and arms back to the Sahel, right? But particularly, they took them back to Mali, northern Mali, close to the border with Algeria. Now, the Sahel is quite a dry, hot, and vast area that is difficult to govern. So there is a lack of government infrastructure. There is a lack of government services like healthcare and education. So the Sahel in general is very hard to govern. So around the Sahel, you find a lot of criminal activities, which amounts to drug trafficking, human trafficking, and there's a lot of weapons trafficking that occurs in the Sahel. Okay, because of the mentioned elements of the Sahel, it was easy for terrorists to actually establish themselves in the Sahel. But to be particular, in northern Mali, close to the border um, with Algeria, in the southern end of the Ogur Mountains, right, where you find a lot of Tuareg people, right, that have established themselves there. Now, because of the factors that I've just mentioned, right, in 2012, the Tuareg rebels and separatists linked to Al Qaeda managed to actually take over northern Mali and basically control it away from the government, right? Because the government didn't really have any infrastructure, any security, or any influence or ability to project power, particularly in the Sahel, in the northern parts of Mali, right? So they managed to take over and control northern Mali using the arms which they received from the fall of the Gaddafi government in 2012. Now, the Al Qaeda linked separatists who took control of northern Mali are basically known as the JNIM, right? Or the Al Sadin, which mostly operated in the northern parts of Mali, particularly in the Sahel region. There was also another terrorist military group that had links to ISIS, right? Which is basically known as the ISGS, which also basically worked with the GNIM, right, which is has links to Al Qaeda, and also worked with the Tuareg rebels to actually take over the northern parts of Mali and basically use it as a launch pad to launch attacks, particularly in the Sahel. Now, the UN sent about 15,000 peacekeepers, particularly led by France, to help keep the peace and fight against these rebel groups or terrorist groups that you mostly find in the northern parts of Mali. Another initiative, right, also pushed by France, known as the G5 Sahel, is basically bringing together about five countries in the Sahel which were particularly affected by the terrorism which occurred in the Sahel. These countries were Mali itself, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, and Mauritania, because these were the countries which these terrorists, which were basically the Tuareg rebels, right? There were also separatists that were linked to Al Qaeda and ISIS, right? They particularly attacked these countries. Now, the terrorist attack actually increased from 2012 right up to, I'd say, about 2016, 17, where the Tuareg rebels actually came into prominence.